Channel Sports Central will be going over our next schedule preview this offseason, and it will be over the Colorado Buffaloes. And this is a team that went 5-7 in the 2019 season. And yeah, Colorado was really close making a bowl game in 2019, but will they in 2020 is what we're going over here today. We're going to be going over a few players that this team will be losing, who they're going to be returning, and also going over their schedule for the first time this offseason. Starting off with the games that Colorado has had since November. We start off on November 2nd when they played UCLA on the road. That was a loss, 14-31. And that certainly should have been a game that Colorado should have won. I mean, last season UCLA was not all that great of a team, so yeah, that was a tough loss there for Colorado. However, the next week they beat Stanford 16-13. Good win there. They also had a good win against Washington at home, 20-14. However, the next week against Utah on the road didn't really turn out that well. They ended up losing to them by 30, 15-45 was the final score of that one. So yeah, for Colorado, they were really inconsistent last season. That was a big problem for them for sure. I mean, as you can tell by that November, that's a clear definition of that. I mean, you beat Washington one week, then you lose to UCLA by several touchdowns in another week, or lose to Utah by 30. I mean, yeah, for Colorado, it was a big inconsistent season. But yeah, between September and October, this team was 3-5. Between November and the rest of the season, they were 2-2. So yeah, once again, pretty bumpy season for Colorado. Looking at your returning production, though, they lose their starting quarterback, Steven Montez. That's going to be a tough loss. He had just right over 2,800 yards last season with 17 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So yeah, he was a decent quarterback. His touchdown interception ratio wasn't very good, but yeah, overall he was a good quarterback is what I should say. They returned their top running back in Alex Fontenot, which he had just right around 1,000 yards with 5 touchdowns. Sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. They also returned their second running back in Jaren Mangum, which he had just right around 500 yards with 3 touchdowns. So the running back core should be pretty good next season. Of course, both their running backs combined for just right around 1,500 yards last season. So yeah, the running back core should be good. However, the wide receiver core takes a couple major hits. They lose their top receiver in Laviska Shenault, which he had just right around 925 yards with 6 touchdowns last season. They also lose their second receiver in Tony Brown, which he had just right around 750 yards with 6 touchdowns. So yeah, they lose their top 2 receivers. They do return their third wide receiver in KD Dixon. He had some action last season with right around 500 yards last season. So yeah, that's good they return him. They also return their fourth wide receiver and Dimitri Stanley, which he really didn't have a whole lot of action last season, but I think he had just right around 250 yards last season. So those two will likely be Colorado's top receivers next season, unless a recruit kind of comes out of nowhere. But yeah, they lose 1 offensive line, 1 defensive lineman, and 2 linebackers, as well as 1 in the secondary. So yeah, this team loses pretty much the average amount on the defense. So really, that's not going to be too terrible. But yeah, that brings up the question, will 2020 be a bowl season for Colorado? Once again, of course, this team has been really close over the past few seasons. I mean, they were 5-7 last season, so I mean, they were really close, but will they in 2020? It's a tough question right now. We're still pretty early on, in my opinion. But if they can get a good quarterback to replace Steven Montez, if they don't have a big quarterback issue next season, if he stays healthy, I think Colorado definitely is a team that could easily make a bowl game. It would not surprise me a single bit to see a team like Colorado make it to a bowl game if they can find a good quarterback. And also, you got to remember that receiving core. I mean, they got to get a couple of good receivers. Well, they got KD Dixon and Dimitri Stanley already, but they do need those 2 receivers to really step up next season if this team is going to be able to make it to a bowl game. I definitely think it's possible. I mean, no doubt in my mind that they could do it, but I'm just not very sure on it right now. Looking at your schedule, you start off the season on September 5th against Colorado State on the road. Then you got Fresno State at home on the 12th, followed by Texas A&M, tough one there, on the 19th. So that's kind of a former Big 12 matchup that used to be there. Of course, Texas A&M and Colorado always used to play each other when they were both in the Big 12. So that should be an interesting matchup there. That one's going to be in College Station. On the 26th, you got Oregon at home. That'll be another tough one. So you got 2 really tough games in back-to-back weeks there to finish off September. In October, you got Arizona. Then you got UCLA, Arizona State, and USC. So your October isn't terrible. Your November, you got Washington State, Stanford, Washington, and then Utah. So yeah, I'd say your toughest months would have to be September and November. September mainly because, I mean, you got to play Texas A&M and Oregon in back-to-back weeks. So yeah, but nonetheless, here's what I'm expecting. I'll give you 2 guaranteed wins. Once again, in our schedule previews, we don't go over every single game. We'll do that in our final predictions. But yeah, your record estimation is going to be 5-7 to 7-5. I think they're going to hug right around the barrier of making a bowl game and not. I think it's going to be more or less a similar season to how it was last season. I don't expect them to do anything crazy. I don't expect them to make it to the Pac-12 championship, but yeah, for Colorado, I do expect them to have a really good shot at making a bowl game. As you can see by the record estimation, I think there's a 2-3 chance that this Colorado team does end up making a bowl game next season. I definitely think it's possible. They definitely have the talent to do so. But once again, it goes back to that quarterback position. Can they replace Steven Montez? Will they not have a bad, quarterback situation next season? And also it goes back to the receiving core, whether or not K.D. Dixon and Demetrius Stanley are able to step up or not. So, yeah, it all depends on that. It mainly depends on the offense. This defense last season was okay. It wasn't great. But overall, the defense, I think they're going to be just fine. It's just the offense next season that does concern me just a little bit. But nonetheless, that about wraps up our schedule preview on Colorado. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this schedule preview. Let me know whether you would disagree with something. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the comments below. If you enjoyed the schedule preview, be sure to slap a like on it. Subscribe as well. Really helps out the channel, and I'd really appreciate that. But once again, thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I will see you all later.